Welcome everybody back to the South End Zone. I am Chad, and you see my friend Tyler. We're gonna start off this show first of all with just a little. I don't know how else to get into this, but like you see these things happen, um, and it's always sad to see something like what happened in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, New Year's morning, and to realize the tragedy and the sadness and the loss of life and everything else, and to wonder why. It's a whole different ball game when it actually like touches you. One of the people who was killed in that attack is one of my son's good friends, someone he graduated with, someone who was supposed to be at my house that night. And there's another boy who was injured, who's on the mend, should recover. But anyway, we just for all the victims, obviously, but especially for Kareem Badawi, who I knew personally, who my son, who's a good close friend of my son's. It's just I'm telling you, it's different. Like you see this. My son even said, he's like, you always see this stuff and it's always horrible, but you never. It's very rare that you know somebody. Like
Hmm.
it's because it's so they're even so rare, and usually it's a small impact in terms of like numbers or whatever, and so the odds of you knowing someone are very small. Um, but anyway, it's just a rough way to start things off to this year, and it's just a we kind of all needed maybe some football to keep our mind off of things, some other things to keep our mind off of things, and so with that, I apologize for starting the show off that way on that
No
very somber
worries.
note, but it took us a little while to get this one recorded because there's been a lot of stuff going on, and anyway, but here we are, and we're back so that Tyler can wear this one because you got to wear it if we're going to talk the smack. We gotta wear it when our team doesn't show up,
Hmm.
doesn't perform. But I will say this before we get started and before I let you go into your breakdown of the game. Um, I think there's not enough emphasis put on what it does for how Notre Dame can scheme you defensively against that offense when you don't have Carson Beck at 100%, and instead you have a backup who played, I don't know what, 50 snaps all year before the
Hmm.
SEC championship game, and maybe 30 in the SEC championship game. It's a whole different ballgame. I know he performed fairly well under the circumstances, but the threat of a Heisman Trophy candidate preseason, second year starter
Yep.
kind of thing is not the same as a guy who the you know the playbook is probably a little bit limited, not completely, but anyway, just I think to look at this and say like, see, Georgia's not that good. Notre Dame washed them.
Hmm.
Like, okay, a this is a redshirt freshman quarterback coming in to or redshirt
Yeah, like
uh,
sophomore.
quarterback coming in who has almost no playing time in his career, and you're throwing like, oh, no big deal, just the biggest stage in the world.
Yeah.
Go, and with everything else that had happened, pushing that game back a day and everything else, and then you combine that with the fact that like the only reason Georgia lost this game was because of about a minute long stretch from the end of the first half to the beginning of the second half.
Yeah.
So with that, I will let you launch into
Yeah.
the game that was the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, yes. The game that was a Sugar Bowl. And listen, for all those out there, I feel like Chad and I are very honest people. We do like to talk shit. We do like to do everything. But we also are very caring people. So, like I said, my love to everybody who was affected by what happened in New Orleans. And of course, you, Chad. I know I was texting you all week long. And so we played this game on a standalone game. What was it, Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even, into full disclosure to everybody, I didn't get to see it in real time because I
Right.
had to work. I had, when I put in for my schedule for this January month, I, and that's it's the truth. I made sure that I had off for every possible playoff day that would happen throughout the course of January. And maybe that's me counting my chickens too early, whatever. But I did, and I had to work during this game, which is fine. Obviously, job comes first. I'm not going to call off. That'd just be,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be not in my character to do so. But I did watch what unfolded, and I just want to talk about our season as a whole. So I feel like this game encapsulates our season as a whole
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I think maybe, and there's a lot of negative Georgia fans, there's a lot of positive Georgia fans, there are a lot of people that'll get mad at you for negative, there's a lot of people that get mad at you for being positive. There's never anybody that's happy. Maybe this season we were just fighting our own destiny throughout the whole season. Maybe like Final Destination style, like we were brushes with death throughout the season and digging our way out of it in the final moments. Obviously we took care of business when it came down to Texas in Austin, but even in the game in the SEC championship, we still had to scratch and claw. We had to go to 8 OTs with Georgia Tech. We
Mm-hmm.
looked terrible to start against Tennessee. We gave Alabama a 28-point lead. It's all of those things. Like I feel like are
Mm-hmm.
what sum up our season. And yes,
Well, it's
it
like
was
your
the season,
identity, your team identity was established as like
right?
you were going to dig yourself a hole, and then it
And try to
was
dig our way out of it.
the outcome was going to be determined by whether or not you successfully dug yourself out of it.
Which
Except for
I
the
mean,
Texas game in Austin,
yes,
where you beat
right.
the doors off of them, and then let them kind of
It's
climb back into it.
it's a spectrum. This team has been a spectrum of what could be good, what could be bad. Are we good? Are we bad? Nobody really knows because we haven't played good
Mm-hmm.
football. I don't think, and it's hard to like it's almost like once you raise that bar and then you fall below it, people are ready to jump on your ass about it. Like 42 consecutive was that home games or
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
regular season games, 42
Yeah,
regular
regular
season
season before the
games
Alabama loss. Yeah.
before the Alabama loss, 42, and we went 29-0 straight up, like 29
Mm-hmm.
straight wins total, undefeated national champions. Like you can't. I know that Nick Saban pre-transfer portal set this precedent that you're going to be amazing all the time, and even Clemson for a bit when they had their generational quarterback run set that precedent you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
good forever. You're going to be a dynasty. We have these dynasties in college football, but it's really so hard to replicate, especially even now that we have the portal at NIL. So yes, this wasn't the year we wanted. Obviously, where we started preseason, were we one to start the year? I can't remember. We weren't one, were we?
No, Ohio State was
I don't even
one.
know
You were
where we
two.
were.
You were two.
Oh, we were two. So
Oregon was
preseason
three.
two, Oregon was three, and Beck being the Heisman hopeful, and that just kind of went off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is the game as we talk about it. Like it sounds like, or it looks like we had opportunities that we could never ever capitalize on, and when we did, mistakes just negated it entirely. You come out, Gunner takes that sack fumble, and of course it goes out of bounds. However, that's a big juice play for
Yeah.
a Notre Dame defense who clearly rides like the hype, like they believe it themselves so fully, and it's very clear
Mm-hmm.
on and off the field. And you give a defense like that juice, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be eating your lunch all day long. You
Well, and
have
it put you
Dylan
way
Bell
behind the
catch it up
chains on offense, so you had to you
for
end up
sure. We
having
had
to
a punt. We had a
punt it
punt.
away, and
We had a,
then
we had a
it
punt.
was instead of having an opportunity to possibly go down and score, set it to an early, you're setting the
Right.
opposite turn.
So we
Yeah.
go back and forth. Dylan Bell catches a long ball, ends up being out of bounds. And watching Stockton actually throw the ball around, he throws like some quarterbacks look relaxed when they throw the ball. He
Mm-hmm.
has this kind of like, I don't know if I want to like Roger Staubach type of like Joe Milton, where he's like, it's his whole body
Mm.
is like if that make like a baseball pitcher almost, if that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. It's like as some people stand very tall and it's just like it comes off the
Yeah.
fingers. He's like drilling it at you. It seems like it's his whole body. Like I can't describe it, but he
Yeah.
throws an absolute laser beam to who? Arian Smith, covered by the way, over the right here, and he's open. He's always open. Has always been open. And this kid, I think it's Parker, some kid, and it's not dressed, who unfortunately everybody says he looks like daddy's money. They bought a building on the field, on campus. That's why I'm here. I don't know
Jones,
anything
was
about
that
the
his
kid.
last name?
Parker
Jones.
Jones, probably.
Yeah.
That feels right. Anyway, he's in the typical sweats and a jersey over top. And to be fair, he steps in the white, and I feel like the ref took a little bit of a wide angle,
Yeah, but
but at
he's
the same,
honestly
like they
though
say on
he's
the TV, you have to respect
yeah.
that area when the ref
And
is
if it's a
running by.
play on the sideline, I think the referee's natural
Right.
path is probably take a wider angle because it's
To
right by
give
you.
room.
to give room
Yeah.
in case somebody,
So the kid is in the wrong. I'm not going to defend the kid. I don't know him. I'm
no, it's
sorry.
just a
Like
really bad break because
it is a super bad break.
if he steps on a hair after the ref passes, it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And you could
instead, it's
see
right
his
before.
mouth go. You could see
Yes.
him and like the other three kids that he's players that he's standing
But
with.
but
It's
honestly,
like
I
that
think
gets
the way
brought
that
back.
his reaction was more like, "Oh, damn, my bad." Not like, "Oh God, I just cost us
Yeah, for
15
sure.
yards and the play's dead right there."
No, he's like, oh shit, my bad, my bad. Yeah, for sure. He's like, oh man, I'm sorry. And then we're even, we're on there at 20.
Hmm.
ETN gets met in the backfield, fumble, turn the ball over. That's opportunity gone. Obviously we put the field goal up, but and as things move on, the defense played well. But like on third and long, it's just Riley Leonard gets away every time, or the running back
Hmm.
gets away, or it was just dump offs that were all of a sudden it's a first down. And then all of a sudden, like you said, yeah, and the game can be summed up to the pretty much, Kirby always talks about this time too, and I forget what it's like the most important 4 minutes or however you want to say is the 2 minutes before halftime and the 2 minutes coming out. Like you got to win
Hmm.
that and you have a good shot to win the game.
You did not
And
win.
we lost it on all possible fronts
You
in
lost it
all
by
the worst ways.
exactly enough points that you would have won the game if it hadn't been for those 4 minutes.
Yes, because we're talking by like the worst that could possibly happen that at least that you're thinking of is we just go in down 6-3.
Hmm.
Maybe we could kick the field goal to make it 6-6. But you're not thinking you're going to give up a touchdown. You're not going to be down by more points at
Right.
the half, and then
Right.
we are. Um, and so that
Strip
we
sack,
we
strip
we
sack fumble, and
strip sack
you're
fumble, and
giving
they
up a
go, and then
touchdown the next play.
and they bring everybody in the box, and they get all of us in the box, and they boop hit the guy in the end zone for a touchdown.
Hmm.
And I mean, immediately coming out of the half, it's just like Kirby's second half adjustment was smart. This is where we've essentially our brushes with death have been. We fought those battles inside the second half, and Kirby making the adjustments for us,
Hmm.
and we let him crib the kickoff of that opening half, and I really think like that was like the nail in our coffin. We
Well,
move on.
watching
We
it
do we
live,
do hit yeah
I did watch it live, and watching it
yeah
live, I was just like, yeah, that's probably it.
yeah.
Like
Like
it
you have
did
a chance.
it just felt like that was
It was
that
surmountable.
you had a chance before. Like I felt like it was going to be tough just because of Stockton and like Marcus Freeman's his MO is defense, and
Hmm.
he's gonna find ways to get Stockton to not be able to
Hmm.
produce in the second half. And if you don't give up that fumble and give up the touchdown right before half, you're in like this let's see who blinks first kind of game, playing field position, play tough defense. Because if you look at Notre Dame's offense, didn't do jack
No,
except
we
like
like I said, our
extend a few
defense was standing
drives.
up. Right,
Yeah, they extended a few drives, but your defense never broke.
right.
You gave up a strip sack fumble that set them up for an easy touchdown, and you gave up a
Hmm.
kickoff return for a touchdown. Other than that, they got 3 field goals in the other 58 minutes of the game. And it was those two
Yes,
touchdowns that it was like, I don't know that you have enough offensive firepower to overcome being
right.
down 20-3
Yep.
at this point.
And we hit cash on the wheel route, and that would be the only touchdown of the game for us. And then it
Yeah.
was more just Notre Dame doing what they do and sitting on that lead and doing it very
Hmm.
well. And they get the
Hmm.
insurance field goal, and that was unfortunately, all she wrote for us. And I think that Marcus really did Kirby a little bit the way he did Kurt Signetti, where they line
Hmm.
up to punt on fourth and
Hmm.
whatever. I think 4th and 1 on their half of the field. And they do the quick, oh, we're going to sub the punt team, and here's the offense. What are we going to do? Are they going to snap it and call a timeout? I don't know. I don't know. The only thing you do is don't jump off sides.
Right.
Because Marcus Freeman is trying to get you to do one of two things: either jump or use
Or
one of
be
your
out of position.
timeouts.
Yeah, or burn a
Or be out,
timeout, or be out of position. Be
yeah,
horribly out of position.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, where that gets you easy. And what do? We jump. And I think that's like, and I give Freeman a lot of credit. He's been very good at doing that. Like
Hmm.
it's like you stack the deck in your favor. It's like, well, you have three options. You play it straight up and hope we don't get this yard. You jump off sides, or you call a timeout. Either way, it works in our favor most of the time. Like
Hmm.
it's like you
Hmm.
stack the deck on that 4th and 1,
Yeah.
like in
Yeah.
the hands of the offense. And I mean, I give him a lot of credit. I think he's a great young coach. I mean, he gets the knock that James Franklin does in ways where he just can't win the big games. Obviously, this is the biggest win of his career, I would guess. Unless
Mm-hmm.
he the team that beat Clemson? Was that his team
No,
that beat
that was
Clemson?
Kelly.
No,
That
okay.
was Brian Kelly.
So there you go. This is the biggest win of Marcus Freeman's career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we go out not the way we would have wanted. It was tough. I still believe in Gunnar Stockton. I think this is the worst time for our O line to not be able to block the left side of the field with what was that Truss and Freeling over there on the left. I believe they play the left.
Mm-hmm.
And it was open season on Gunnar, and I do like Gunner's ability to run. I think he ran at the right times. Um, but like I don't want to say it wasn't our day, but we didn't play like it was our day. Even if it was, we didn't play like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then and this is outside the field, but quick, rest in peace to Sonny Smart, father of
Mm-hmm.
Kirby. I guess he fell while they were there, and he had unfortunately had complications during surgery. So you compound all that with just a rough end of the season. I mean, hats off to Notre Dame. I don't want to give it to them, but let me be very clear, Notre Dame, and I'm going to be real. If you don't win a national championship, you are still 3-1 against us and have never won a real national championship.
1 and
So
3.
what are you still? 3-1. No, they're
Oh,
1-3. We're 3-1 against you. I'm sorry.
yeah.
We are 3-1 against you, and you've never won a real national championship.
Yeah.
And so, what does that still make you? Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll say this too. Like we
I'm not trying to
are.
shit talk, but know
Yeah.
your place, earn it.
Right.
And I can't
Right.
say
Earn it.
nothing.
Yeah.
But right
Earn it,
now,
and
if you lose,
we can't say anything.
if you lose,
We're
then we're both the same. We both lost in the playoff. We are the
right.
same. We're the same, man.
Right, and
You know,
that's the thing I always want to try to get across to people because there's all these people. I said something about Josh Pate had said something about like they were going to play the national championship in Jordan Hare or something. And he was saying like it has to be in the Sugar Bowl all the time because it's like it's the place or something like that. And he was like, give me other options. And so somebody said Jordan Hare, and he's like, yeah, because Alabama, Ole Miss, and somebody else are like 200 miles away or whatever. So it's, not really home field advantage for any of them, but it's also kind of home field advantage. And I was like, it's interesting that you put Ole Miss in there, but you didn't put LSU in there. When Ole Miss has never won an actual national championship, they only have that one from 1960 when it was the voting thing. And then somebody's like oddly insecure comment, like insecure. What are you talking about? I'm just saying, like, what? Why? It's weird to put like a team that never plays for the national championship in a list of teams that may or may not benefit from the national championship
yeah.
being close to them. Like, you
If
might as well
anything, the
put
Sugar
Troy.
Bowl.
You might as well say
Yeah.
Troy while you're at it. Like what are we talking about here? That's all I was saying. It was not
Sugar Bowl is
insecure at
good
all.
location.
So
The
so
Sugar Bowl and the Peach Bowl.
yeah. So what we're saying here is this is not us saying Notre Dame isn't good and Notre Dame doesn't belong or anything like that. What we're saying is you still have work to do, big guy.
Right.
You're
Yep.
not done
It's not
yet.
over.
You don't get to talk yet.
And it
You
only
need
gets
to
worse from here.
keep quiet, keep moving, keep your head down, get the job done. Then you can talk all you want. Um, and again about this whole like the thing with the playoff and how many teams we should have and whether this is the right way that we're doing things now versus like either reducing the number of teams or not expanding the number of teams. I think there should be more teams. I think it would help to thin out the herd in that first round with some what would end up being some better matchups where you would get some of those teams from 9 to 16 playing against each
Mhm.
other first. And then you'd sort some of that stuff out and then you'd move on to the second round to where like if you have teams from 5 to 16 playing or 5 to 12 playing each other, and then it's 1 versus 16, 2 versus the way that the
Yeah,
NCAA
March
tournament
Madness
bracket is,
style.
then you filter out the weak stuff, or you find out that one of those top four seeds got exposed by one of those
Mhm.
lower seed teams, and it's like holy crap, what an upset. But you sort a lot of that stuff out and the matchups keep getting better because what we've seen is what have we seen these matchups keep getting better because now what do we have this weekend? We know
Mhm.
that the four teams that we have playing for this thing,
Earned it.
they're not the top four seeds because
No.
all the top four seeds lost, but
Yep.
these are the four best teams. These are the four teams that belong where they are right now because they earned their way there. um so if you start thinking about trying to either reduce the field or make it more subjective or anything like that, what I like about expanding the field to 16 or maybe even 24, I think 16 is probably a good safe number. I think we're seeing that the buys aren't really a benefit unless they change
Nope.
the structure of when things start. But
Yep.
what you would do is you would make it to where the championship becomes more and more objective as we have gone through this process. It
Hmm.
was purely subjective back when, if you use the same rules that we had pre BCS, who's the national championship? Who's the national champion this year, Tyler? Oregon,
Yep.
because Oregon would have won the Rose Bowl against Penn State
Yep.
because that was Big Ten number one versus Pac-10 number one,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
if you use the rules from back then, Oregon would have won the national championship, undefeated
In the
Rose Bowl
Rose Bowl.
champion,
Hmm.
right? Where's Oregon? At home with Georgia and Indiana and Boise State and Arizona State and Clemson and SMU. Okay. So, and Tennessee. Um, or we could use the BCS system where it was just one game. What would that game have been? It would have
That's
probably
against
been
Oregon.
Oregon against Texas or Oregon against Georgia, right?
Hmm.
Because whether the SEC championship gets played or not, like because Texas wouldn't have been in the SEC. But anyway, you get the picture. We're
Yep.
sitting here looking at a game between probably most likely two teams that have already been eliminated. That would be our
Yep.
national championship. A four-team championship, we're still probably looking at the same thing because it's probably let's be real, they're probably taking uh, Oregon, obviously, Georgia, it may be Texas and Penn State
Or Ohio State,
or
if
Ohio.
they really wanted to.
But I don't know. Like Ohio State losing to Michigan and not making the
Yeah, that's true.
championship game, they've done weirder stuff before where they've
That's
left
way
teams out.
weirder.
You have to trust that they're not going to put Boise State in there like they did with
Yeah.
Cincinnati. Okay, so like these kinds of things happen. Is that what we really want? No.
And then, but
So
then you have. Sorry, go ahead.
what I'm getting at is that forget about what happens in the first round. What we're The point we're trying to make is that every iteration as we've gotten down this path has created a championship that is a truer championship every time. At every step along the way, the champion at the end can really say, like, we're it. No one else could have beaten us.
Hmm.
We're the champ. So
And all the people that got their crack at it can't say they didn't, like they didn't weren't given a
they had
shot.
their shot. They had their
Like
shot.
the you know like
You can't say
and they
like Boise
gave
State was 13-0 in '08 and won the
right,
Fiesta Bowl and never even got a chance to see if they could
right.
prove otherwise.
They got their opportunity, but
They
which is
got their
what
opportunity.
we like the most. It takes away the what if fake national champions. It takes away,
Right.
the what if this, what if that. Who knows? Because you get the opportunity, you earn the opportunity, you
Mhm.
play on the field, and I think we as much as we didn't like the first week of games, I think these games were. I mean, there were some blowouts for sure, but I think you just needed one. You
Mhm.
just needed one to prove the point. And I think that Arizona State and Texas
Mhm.
delivered in every way possible. We want to talk about that
So
game because I
let's talk
certainly
about
do.
that game right now.
That
Let's get
that
to
game
it.
was unbelievable. I remember Twitter when Texas took their early lead. They were like, "This is why another dud." Even me, I was like, "Dang!" I believed in Arizona State. I thought they were live from the beginning. Dude, Cam Scatterbo, and I don't know what way to describe him. He's like the dude that like, this not to be disrespectful, but he's like the dude that like, you know, that like gets drunk at the party and you look at him wrong, he might fight you, like type of vibe. He gives me that kind of
Yes.
vibe. I don't know
Yes.
why. Like, there's no disrespect. There's
Well,
no
and
disrespect. Like,
supposedly he had the flu too.
yeah, he was playing his
He was like
flu game.
vomiting on the
Like,
sidelines and everything. And
yeah. So he got 30
so,
carries for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 99 receiving yards.
oh,
Kid
and
went off, rightful
and
Heisman winner.
no, wait, and what else did he do?
Oh,
Look at the
passing.
rest of his stat line.
Yep. He threw a passing touchdown, right?
42-yard passing touchdown.
Yep.
Not like a 2-yarder. Not like a, like we lined him up in the Wildcat, and he just dumped it
Yeah,
off
he
to the
just dumped
tackle
it.
who was reporting eligible.
Yeah,
No, it was a
yep.
42-yard bomb. The dude
And,
can
I
do it
mean,
all.
all
And then he set this off after. He was like,
yeah. It's not a weapon. At least, well, suppose whatever.
yeah,
Um, I thought it was a great game. This is like, but here's the thing: is you don't get stuff like this. Arizona State was picked last in the Big 12,
yep,
picked last, and they would have never
hmm
sniffed a 14 playoff, regardless
hmm
of being the Big 12 champion.
yep,
They would have never even. They would have been upset because then they would have been the Big 12 champ. That would have been it. They would have been playing like your New Year's Day bowl. They would have been playing in the Gator Bowl. They would have played in the Outback Bowl. They would have been playing one of those bowls. I can't even think.
hmm
Like they would have not been here. I can tell you that much. They would have been playing BYU or
right,
Colorado again for a
right,
bowl game.
yep,
But they get to play this game, and this game was electric. And I mean, to be fair, like Texas took the early lead. It looked rough, but you have to avoid, and we'll talk about with the Boise State game. I know that game got away from them eventually, but you avoid the pitfalls of the
hmm
extra points on the board to the other team. And you just have to wear them out until you can figure out what works for you. And you just
hmm
can't get down too early. You can't let them get, and it was looking rough.
yep,
And then it's like, oh shit, we have a game. Like we're live. Like this is a game that we can play. It was 14-3 at the quarter. Then it was 17-3. And then ASU said, hold my beer.
yeah.
And they
Well,
they
when
delivered
they
one
got
of
the
the
fake punt, and then they pulled off a
yep.
couple other little wrinkles here and
Dillingham
there.
Dillingham is cut from the same cloth as Dan Lanning. Unfortunately, Dan Lanning did not deliver in the way that we thought he would.
Yeah,
But they are cut for the we got nothing to lose. It's empty the playbook.
yep,
And if only they got home on that 4th and 13 and overtime, the game would have been that would have been it.
man.
I
Look,
like Sark is slowly rising up my list of coaches I don't like. So we didn't even talk about that. We didn't even
and
talk
it's
about
and
that. For
it's
him to
hard because
have that
he
fake
doesn't.
TV moment with his kicker,
Yeah, he's not
to
a
have that fake TV moment with his kicker.
hmm
Sorry, go ahead.
he's one of those, like, it's harder to hate him because he doesn't come off as like brash or anything crazy.
No.
And then there's always like that, like it's hard to be brash maybe when you've been caught on camera eating your boogers in the coach's booth. Like that's a tough one. But shout out to
Yeah.
Sark when he was the OC at Alabama. But it's like there's a certain part, and then there's like other stuff where like they talked about like when he was at USC, just some weird stuff coming out of reports about how he was showing up at practice and different things like that. So I don't know, but he seems to have gotten his stuff together. He's always been a really good offensive mind.
For
That's why he's
sure.
traveled around as an OC just about everywhere that's
Yeah, and
been
he was
at a,
always
at a high
OC for
level.
hire.
Yep. But yeah, the I don't know. I hope they got Auburn in some like nice little psychological sessions or something like that, because I was wondering if Sark was just going to go for two after they scored, just to not have him have to think about
Yep.
kicking a game tying PAT. But yeah, that 4th and 13 play, man, look, it's not just that Arizona State gave up a 4th and 13 and gave up a touchdown. They are 4th and 13 away from they're in the semis.
Yep. Yeah, they're in the yeah,
They're up a
they are in it.
touchdown. They're up
Yep.
a touchdown, and Texas has to score a touchdown to
Yep.
not lose.
It's 4th and 13, and then they had the opportunity for the first down. They need to get a first down.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Dillingham said after it was like a cover, it's like cover 0 that plays like cover 4 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, somebody in the comments was like, why did anybody get home if it's cover 0? I was like, well, I guess that's just like, that's just Texas pass protection, like stepping up.
That's the thing. So like and you're starting to see this where the separation is starting to happen now. And
Yeah.
that's why if you look at what LSU has done in the portal, going and making sure that they resecure that offensive line so they can protect Nussmeier next year. If you have beef up front on both sides of the ball, you're on a different level. And look at the teams that are still in it. Ohio State has some monsters up front on both sides. And even though they've had some injuries on their offensive line, they still have hosses up front. Texas has hosses up front on both sides of the ball. Penn State, obviously, same thing. Notre Dame, you know what I mean? Like all the teams have weathered the storm. Where good luck getting home. I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
saying not saying you can't, but you're going to have to go through some beefy dudes. Pause. But anyway, it's and so yeah, you and I appreciate Dillingham for number one owning that and saying
Yep.
like that's on
It
me.
wasn't the
Do
it
not
wasn't the player's
criticize that
fault.
DB. He's
Yep.
doing what he's coached to do to cover that route because the way that it's supposed to happen is he's not supposed to have enough time to get that ball over the top. And if you worry about that over the top and they catch a 15 yarder underneath and get the first down anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So but yeah, you absolutely have to if you're going to run that coverage and bring seven people, you've got to get somebody's got to get home,
At least
and they
make
just
Quinn
didn't.
Ewers think about it.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I give Texas credit. Um, I just feel bad, like, because Sark had that fake moment with Auburn on the TV screen. And they made a great point. When have you ever seen a head coach have a moment like that with a kicker ever
Yeah.
before trying to kick the game winner? That's like the worst thing you could do to somebody maybe ever. I don't even know what he said. It doesn't matter what he said.
Yeah.
It's the having the buddy to buddy moment on national television and then said, okay, have fun, go win the
Yeah.
game, I guess. Like,
Go,
whatever.
go kick this
But
field goal.
shout out,
Whoops.
shout out Texas. Oh darn, doinked it. I couldn't even believe it. I was losing my mind. Like, but shout out to Arizona State. Shout out to Cam Scatterboo. Rightful Heisman? I don't know. Could
Yeah.
be at this point with the way he
Looked better
played. It was
than looked better than Travis Hunter did in his final
pretty
game.
damn impressive. I'll tell you what. But we had another
Mhm.
Heisman candidate playing
Yeah.
in the bowl
And so
game,
that's
and
the other thing I want to say too about this is that I don't know that Boise State and Arizona State don't make a 14 playoff, but there's a very good chance they don't. And like that's one of the things that's really cool. You remember DJ Burns last year in the NCAA tournament for NC State, big kid, post player. NC State goes on a little run. Like if it's only a 12 team NCAA tournament for basketball, that team is not in the tournament and he's not on that stage. Nobody even knows who he is. He's not making a name for
right, I
himself.
remember that.
And like there's always that stuff. And that's one of the things that I love about this is that like people who didn't watch a lick of Big 12 football, didn't watch a lick of Mountain West Conference football, got to see on a big stage what Ashton Janty and Cam Scatterboo can do. And you can say
Right.
everything you want about, oh, they shut. Did you see the run Ashton Janty made where he broke like 7 tackles against Penn State? Like, don't tell me. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
brought everything they could to try to stop him, and he still went over 100 yards and still, he still did his thing. Granted, it wasn't enough, obviously, but this game actually, when they hit that big
It
touchdown, like
looked good for a
they they
while.
they made a little bit of a case, but Penn State just had too
They
much.
looked they like we talked about the pitfalls, and they checked off the first box that SMU could not. And it was when
Right.
it was 14-0, and instead of coughing it up again to Penn State and letting it be 21-0, it quickly became 14-7. And that's
Hmm.
miles different in
Yep.
psychologically and just your ability, let's go, we're here. And
Hmm.
they cut the bleeding early, and it goes to 17-7 at half. And then I know that like Penn State eventually, but Penn State only scored 2 touchdowns in
Well,
the second half. They didn't do anything crazy to win this game. They just were consistent and they
hmm
possessed the ball. And I
but
give
they gave
Maddox
up
Madsen a
they
lot of.
gave up that touchdown to
Mhm.
Boise State on the broken coverage, cut it to seventeen
Yep.
fourteen, and that's where you're
Yep.
like, wait a second, do we
Yeah, we
have
have
something
one.
here?
We're live.
And then it was just the Nick Singleton
Katron
and
Allen,
Katron Allen show like from that point on, and it was those two dudes,
best running
man. I'm
back duo in
telling
the
you.
country.
And the one thing I'll say about this is like when you watch Katron Allen like in that game, even early on, even if he was getting 4 yards, he was getting 4 yards when he should have lost two. He was getting
Yep.
7 yards when he should have gotten one or two. He was getting
Mhm.
13 yards when he should have gotten stopped at the line of scrimmage. And then eventually, like he wore them down to the point where Singleton could bust off that long run, and then at the end of the game, they
Yeah.
just continued to wear him down, and they couldn't get stops when they needed to get stops, and that's the difference when you have so like Ashton Janty, he's trying to do all that himself, and the whole defense is loaded up to stop him. There's enough other weapons that Penn State has that they're
Right.
they're actually really dangerous. This is a team that I think we're at a point now where are you going to be surprised if any of these four teams wins the whole thing?
No, because they earned it. How would I be surprised? You know what I
You
mean? It's
know,
like they're here. Like
whereas
they made their case.
in the past Final Fours when we've had the BCS, 14 playoff thing or the CFP 14 playoff, we look at it and we're usually like, okay, let's be realistic. They don't have a chance. A few years ago it was, Washington when Alabama boat raced them in the first round.
Michigan State.
Oklahoma, I didn't think Oklahoma had a chance against us, and you saw it. We even with Jalen Hurts. Michigan State that one year, yeah. Cincinnati that one year. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? I think a lot of people probably would have said TCU a couple of years ago. Um,
Listen,
and
you and
then
I
they
bang the drum for TCU. They
then they
earned their
beat.
spot to be
Yeah,
there.
oh, they did, but it still was that kind of thing where you always wonder, like, well, but was
Hmm.
there another team?
Right.
Should Alabama have maybe been in
Alabama.
there?
Nick
You
Saban
know,
bangs that drum every time you
yeah,
give him the opportunity to.
absolutely. So in this case, again, because they were forced to earn it, I think the four teams that are there, and from what we've seen as they've made their way through to get to this point, now we get to look at it and say, I definitely could see Penn State winning this whole thing. I definitely
Hmm.
could see Notre Dame winning this whole thing. Obviously, I could see Ohio State winning the whole thing. They're looking like the most impressive team in football right now. And I think the team that everybody's probably discounting the most is probably Texas because they're playing Ohio
Right.
State next. And let me tell you, like, I know we've talked about their schedule, how they didn't play all the best teams in the SEC, and but like, they did what they did against you guys with Carson Beck fully healthy in the first half of that game in the SEC championship. And I, I don't know, like, and then you saw they handled their business against Clemson, who I think Clemson's very underrated. I think people need to be careful and watch out for Clemson next year because with Klubnik coming back, they're going to be interesting. And then I think this Arizona State team might be one of the toughest teams that we had in this field. And Texas
Yes. The
got out to a big
grittiest.
lead, blew it, but then still finished the job, got it done. Even though they probably needed a little bit of help, they also didn't help themselves with the two missed field goals. I, Texas, if you looked at it before the season, everybody, including us, because they were the one team I said Texas is definitely making the playoff.
Yep.
So I'll put that bet down because I saw their schedule and I knew that they had the dudes. They still have the dudes, and like they're in a situation where if something happens to Quinn Ewers in the first half, Arch Manning comes off the bench. If something happens to Will Howard, Ohio State's screwed. Something happens to Riley Leonard, Notre Dame is screwed. Drew Aller, Penn State's screwed. What's his name? Berbula
Perbula
is
transferred.
is is gone. So like, not that he was like your prototypical
But he could
pro
win the
style
game for
quarterback.
them.
He could win the game for you by doing what he does best. Um,
Yes.
so I don't know that there's a team that's more set up. And then look at also what Texas has on the outside at the receiver position. Look at their running backs, that O line, D line. Like it's and they've got a secondary that's good enough.
Hmm.
They're I think numbers wise they're one of the best in the country. Um, but I think it's mostly because their pass rush has been helping them out a lot. But their secondary can guard you. So this it's actually a really good matchup. So anyway, but the point is like this is why we do this so that you can filter this. Those first couple of rounds are not the we need to. If anybody gets blown out in the first round, we shouldn't have them in the first round. No,
Yeah.
this is a filter. We're filtering.
People get people get so mad about like well, what game would you want to see more? So it's not about what game you want to see more. It's not about what team you'd rather see. Would this be a better game? Yeah, probably. But that team also lost to Oklahoma.
Right.
Sorry. Like,
Yeah,
would you
exactly.
would you rather see Jackson Dart? Yes, but guess what? Jackson Dart threw 3 interceptions down the swamp. I can't help
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can't. I would like
Yeah.
it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think that yes, that Ole Miss, Alabama, if you put those teams in the playoff right now, regardless of what happened to Alabama against
Hmm.
Michigan, and we will talk about
Yeah.
that. Don't you worry, everybody. But
Yeah.
regardless, I think a fully functioning Ole Miss Alabama team could
Hmm.
make a splash. But guess what? They didn't earn it. And
Yeah, they didn't earn it. With
these
this
four
12
teams,
team. Yeah.
regardless what we think about Texas and their schedule, we already said it. We covered that. They won their 2 games. They're here,
And if they
and we
beat
have.
Ohio State, shut the hell
Mhm.
up.
And
If they
talking
beat
speaking
Ohio
of
State,
Ohio
you got to
State,
shut the hell up because
right,
then they definitely earned it.
right.
Because who the hell else? Like are they not worthy until they win the whole thing? Like and we're talking about Notre Dame, but like Notre Dame hasn't won jack since way before the last time Texas won a national championship.
Mhm.
At least Texas won one in '05. Like,
Yep.
come on now.
Like,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's that yes, if we had a 16 team playoff and Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina had all been in there, then maybe they would have knocked off some of the Indianas, SMU's of the world, right? And we would have had a different. The filter would have led us down the path of having a different 8 teams in the final 8, and then maybe a different 4 teams in the final 4. But that doesn't mean that we should exclude some of the teams that looked ugly. No, I'm saying like let those other. That's why I say go to 16, because if you let those other 4 teams that everybody was looking at, like these teams probably belong in the top 12, but they didn't really earn it. But they're probably better. But we can't, it. Instead of having that like hemming and hawing, just expand the field by those 4 teams. When you get outside that, do we even remember who the 17th team is? Who's after South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss, and they weren't in the discussion. They weren't. Nobody was saying like this other 5th team should be in there ahead of SMU. It
Yeah.
was just those 4 teams, and if those
Mhm.
4 teams are in there and SMU is also in there, then you give first of all, you give SMU maybe a little bit of an on ramp to like, okay,
Yeah.
let's get
To
into
not
this
get
thing.
their doors
Let's
blown
go beat
off.
Indiana. Let's go beat Indiana first. Okay, we beat
Yep.
Indiana. All right, move on to next. But no, instead it was like, boom, on the road, Happy Valley. Good luck, bitch. Whiteout. you know, the ball's frozen. I hope you enjoyed it. Go back to
So
Dallas
welcome.
now. So
Yeah. Dog, what insane. But I'll tell you what game I don't think I saw could have seen the outcome of the Rose Bowl happening the way Jeremiah Smith,
oh yeah, a dog.
unbelievable. And you want to talk about a game that, like,
Better
I
than
wish
Marvin
I would not
Harrison, if you
gone back.
ask me. Better than Marvin
I
Harrison.
agree. I agree. 100% agree.
Hmm.
Jeremiah Smith did not look. I mean, not. I'm sorry. Marvin Harrison did not look this good. He was
Dominant.
good and will be
Yeah.
good, dominant, unbelievably dominant. And down in Pasadena, they have their, and I think we talk about the 16 team playoff and the way the schedule works. It's because these bowl games need their money, which is
Hmm.
what's going to screw us from having a naturally flowing schedule when it comes to the college football postseason. Because the
Hmm.
Rose Bowl will never, ever give up their 5 p.m. game on January 1st,
Yeah.
ever. And that's
Yeah.
just unfortunate in the world that we live in. But talk about that game. And you and I should have never gone back on myself at the last second. I was like, Dan Lanning has that something. His teams have that something. Well, apparently they forgot it at home because, good Lord, did Ohio State put a hurting on the Oregon Ducks. Chad, what do you
This
think about
score,
this?
this score looks way more
Oh my
gentle
God.
than the prison rape that Ohio State inflicted on Oregon, because it was bad. Like it was just holy cow, man. Like it was. I was jokingly, but I was tweeting like I was like, Oregon doesn't belong in this playoff. This is ridiculous. This is why you can't, let these poser,
Yeah.
fake champion contenders teams in. I'm being,
Undefeated.
facetious, obviously, but look, if you're gonna have, if the argument is Indiana didn't belong because they got beat bad, SMU didn't belong because they got beat badly, like. Tennessee didn't belong because they went to like, okay, well, Oregon wasn't even playing on the road. They were playing in the Rose Bowl, as neutral a site as you can get in
Mm-hmm.
these. Like, Oregon had to travel to Pasadena. Columbus is not close to Pasadena either. You know, so like you go from
Yeah.
Eugene to Pasadena, Columbus to Pasadena. I'm not saying it's equidistant, but it's pretty damn far for both of them.
It's yes.
Okay,
It's a
this
flight.
is
It's a
not.
plane. It's
They
a
did
plane
not go
ride.
play in Columbus at night. Tennessee looked better than Oregon. That's all I'm saying. Tennessee was
Unbelievable
within.
too.
Tennessee was within like a shot of like get a score to start the second half, and you're within 4 points. And you
Yeah.
now we're talking. It was a
It
10,
was
11 point
34 to
game at
8.
halftime.
It was 34-8 at halftime. And
It
I
was
would like to
over.
write like Will Howard. How you doing? My name is Tyler, and I apologize for ever
Apologize.
saying anything mean about you and saying that this was a lateral move from Kyle McCord. I'm sorry. Right hand up. It was never on.
Look,
That's on
hey,
me.
at the time, you don't need to apologize. I'm gonna unapologize for you because at the time that you made that comment, Will Howard had just looked like I don't know, JJ McCarthy against
Mhm.
Michigan, throwing for like
Yeah.
75 yards or some nonsense. Oh no, that was the Michigan quarterback that threw for 67 yards or whatever it was. But anyway, Will Howard did not look good against Michigan. Meanwhile, Kyle McCord was going nuts and beating Miami to knock them out of the playoff for Syracuse. So you were not unfounded in your criticism of Will Howard and your praise of Kyle McCord at the time. It was
Yep.
valid.
Mhm.
Granted, the
Fair enough.
competition was different, but yeah, this was disgusting.
Like,
Will Howard was just like, "Oh yeah, watch this. I don't have to
yeah.
slide this time."
Yeah. Well, I give him credit for owning that mistake because they showed clips of him talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, that's on me. Like, I didn't check the clock.
Mhm.
I didn't do. It was me. I didn't do this. I didn't do that,"
That's the
which
way you
is
need to be.
totally respectable. And he went
That's how you
back and he
get
fixed
better.
it.
That's the only way you
That's
get
how you
better.
right. You got to earn it. You got to own it. And he did all of those things and then some. Jeremiah, like, if we're gonna see, and this is like I don't think this is that outlandish, and this might be overreaction, but not really. If Jeremiah Smith continues on this trajectory, he will be the best shot for another receiver to win the Heisman.
Yeah, I can see that.
I still think that you have a lot of quarterbacks come through the ranks that are gonna unfortunately take it,
Hmm.
but you're talking like Devontae Smith levels of open,
Hmm.
of wide the hell
Hmm.
open,
Hmm.
of of,
And
of
not only that, but
separation.
like Devontae Smith weighs like 67 pounds soaking wet, and
True.
Jeremiah Smith is like 230 and like
Yeah,
6'3". It's just
yeah,
like a damn
dude.
tight end running like that. He reminds me a lot of David Boston, honestly. Like that kind of, but it's like David Boston, but with that like elite level speed.
Mm.
So.
He's just open all the time, and then if he's not
Mhm.
open, guess what? He's gonna break 3 tackles and then crib one. And the Ohio State run game looked great. I know they love their running back. What's his name? Travion Henderson. Is that his
Fabian
name? That sounds
Henderson,
right.
yeah.
He got
And
busy. I just think like from top to bottom, they looked and the Ohio State defense, who is moving the ball against them?
it's
Who?
tough. It's tough.
Like I mean, now that our season is over, I don't think we would have beat him. I think we would have had a shot. I think we would have had the exact same result. I'll be honest with you. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that's like the defeatist mentality that I've had since the losing to Notre Dame. But even before we played Notre Dame, I thought we wouldn't have a chance. We played Ohio State. I
Uh,
really that's like
what's funny is if it had been Georgia versus Ohio State for the national championship, I'd have had Jeremiah on here just so that you and him could be like Ryan Day and James Franklin,
no
uh,
you.
going back and forth over like who thinks their team has the least chance of winning.
Who could be more
Um,
polite?
who could be, yeah, who, well, no, just who's gonna be like, no, 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 man, y'all are gonna win. No, no, y'all are gonna win. No, no, y'all are gonna win. No, we suck. We can't do anything against y'all. No, we can't do anything against y'all. It's but I think maybe Jeremiah's coming around to actually thinking this Ohio State team's good. Look, and in his defense, when he was critical, it was valid to be critical, just like I was talking about with Kyle McCord and Will Howard.
Yeah.
Like the criticism was valid at the time because
Mm-hmm.
it jives with what we were seeing with our eyes. But yeah, I think This team, now we will see. It's going to be a whole different ball game going to Dallas. Texas is getting no pub. Oregon was getting all the pub, and Ohio State was getting the, can you really prove it? We don't believe in you kind of talk. I think Texas has that kind of bulletin board material this time. So Ohio State has to. We've talked about how trying to manufacture adrenaline
Hmm.
and want to. When you lost to a team earlier in the year, and people have been talking about it this whole time, they've been talking about how you can't win big games, and you didn't really win a big game the other time because you played a home game against a team that you know people had a freshman sophomore quarterback, whatever, and all this. The Tennessee thing was like, okay, that's not the same as this Oregon game. Everybody was looking at this Oregon matchup as like the one, and then you go and you beat the brakes off of them after everybody's been talking shit about Oregon this whole time, and they're the team to beat. You didn't have to manufacture adrenaline because you had every single bit of motivation. If anybody, Oregon probably had to get themselves back up for like, okay, we got to beat these guys again. And this time it's not
Hmm.
at home, and everybody's telling us how great we are and how great our coach is and how great our defense is and our offense is and how great our quarterback is, and blah, blah, blah. Well, now all that stuff shifts over, and now that's what they're doing with Ohio State. And everybody's talking about how Texas got beat by you guys twice, how they barely beat Clemson, or they had the closest matchup in the first round, right? And then how they almost lost to Arizona State and they shouldn't be here. And that just to me sounds like a recipe for Ohio State better watch the hell out.
Yeah,
And I don't know
I
how
mean,
you
it's gonna
I don't know
be
how you get yourself to like feel like you're the underdog when you're not the underdog. But Texas is not going to have that problem with motivating themselves to get hyped up for this game.
it's gonna be two great games. I can't wait for that. But I think we got a couple other bowl games. LSU did play everybody, and
Yeah.
they did win. Talk to
Yes.
them, Chad.
Look, man. Bowl games are weird. They
They are weird.
generally don't mean anything in terms of like it's cool. It's a fun thing to do, and it's great to win them. But at the end of the day, like when it's I don't know, like we talked about just now, manufacturing adrenaline and all that stuff. When you're playing for the ultimate prize, you don't have to manufacture anything. It's just there naturally because you're playing for a chance to win everything. If you're playing in the Texas Bowl, you're playing to win the Texas Bowl, and that's it. So you've got to find another way to get yourself motivated to go beat the piss out of Baylor, who you never play and who's not really a rival or anything else, and you're playing the game in Texas, closer to them than it is to you, and all that stuff. But what was cool was seeing Braden Swinson and Savion Jones and some of these other guys come out and actually play the game when their eligibility is up and they don't have to be out there. They're trying to get drafted. Braden Swinson's looking like he might be a day two draft pick off the edge, but they came out there and they played. And in the year, that's one of the things I've been most impressed with this whole bowl season is how many guys in that kind of position who don't really gain anything for their draft stock by playing in the games who actually opted in and played. Um, but Garrett Nussmeier did his thing. He got it done. The defense was spotty still. We have our issues, but we're addressing that in the portal. We're just kicking ass and taking names in the portal, loving that.
Yeah, you are.
Um, but the one big
Ugh.
thing that came out of that game that was just not fun was Whit Weeks dislocated his
Yeah.
ankle, and thankfully it was a dislocation and it wasn't like a whole bunch of other stuff with multiple breaks and like an Achilles tear or something like that. Ankle dislocation surgery should be okay for like spring. So
That's
that's
wonderful.
that's great to hear. And I'm totally fine if they have him in bubble wrap in the spring and wait until fall camp where he's fully healthy to let him go start turning it loose. But yeah, you're going to bring back Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins, who declared he's coming back. And then you went and got some guys in the portal, and you got some other guys that you brought in from the high school ranks, and then Devon Keys, who had a pick six in this game, is coming back to play linebacker as well. So you get to replace the likes of like Greg Penn and some of your other guys that were helping out there. West Weeks played a little bit in this game, and you saw him. That was kind of a tough moment when he was just bawling his eyes out, crying on the sidelines when he saw his brother down. But when it turned out that it was just what it was, he ended up being okay and going and high fiving his brother on the way. But anyway, the game was the game. It's just it's a bowl game. Like I said, bowl games are weird. There's you can learn a little bit from them, but it's a lot of times it's really hard to measure because you don't have the same. It's just not the same vibes as it is with the regular season or the postseason that leads to championships. Like
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
and especially in this day and age, like I think the bowls were probably a bigger deal, a more meaningful thing back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Hmm.
But even then it was like, I don't know, man, you go on a vacation as a team to
Yeah,
New Orleans or Pasadena or Orlando or whatever. You're going to Disney World for 2 days and then you're mixing in practice and it's just not the same. It's not
yeah.
it's like an exhibition game that we treat
It's
as
what they
though it
kind of are.
means. They are. It's an exhibition game. Like you're going out there and you're trying to like split time between. I mean, God bless you if you go to the Las Vegas Bowl. Holy cow, man! Spending a week in Vegas and then trying to play a
Yeah.
football game. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's
I'm
like,
with you.
or you're in Miami for the Orange Bowl or whatever. Like it's you've heard all the stories of, and I know you can say
Oh,
like, well, it's about who does a better job of handling that. No, it's not. Like it's a bunch of kids that are like, I've never been out of like my hometown except for when
yep.
I went to Alabama or where, Ole Miss or wherever. And now I'm in Miami and holy cow, like this place is crazy. It's lit out here. And then you got to go try to play a game and have the same mindset that you had August through
Yeah.
December. It's not the same.
I think you just
So,
gotta have fun with it. I think that's like the bottom line. Like you gotta have fun with it.
mhm.
You gotta know, like you gotta be able to take care of business. But I think you're having fun. Like I told you, my cousin, he got to play Boca Raton Bowl and beat Western Kentucky. So they had
There
like,
you go.
you got to at least go down to Florida and be in the warmth.
Shout out to
But we had
James
some.
Madison.
Listen, sounds out to JMU, baby. Go Dukes.
Yeah.
Um, but not Kurt Signetti. And we also have the SEC. People talk about the SEC bowl record, and
Mhm.
the SEC, we have not performed. And shout out to you, Alabama. You and your
Mhm.
starting quarterback, Jalen Milroe, went and lost to Michigan, who cannot execute a forward pass.
Yeah. Hey, look. All right. So I'll say
I
this
can't
too
even
about
talk
that.
shit because it's like the bowl
It,
games. You can't really talk shit. You
yeah.
can't make a case,
Well,
but
not only
I'm
that,
going
but
to
it
anyway.
like it like poured down rain for like 5 minutes,
Yeah, it did.
and it was like a torrential downpour, and Alabama had the ball like then it was like fumble, and then they gave up a field goal, I think, and then they fumbled again, and then they gave up another field goal, and then they threw a pick and they scored a touchdown after that. And so it's like, and then it just stopped raining, and then after that, after it stopped raining, that's when Alabama started to come back when the field kind of drained a little bit, and Ryan Williams wasn't slipping every time he tried to come out of his breaks, like.
Yep.
Well, whoever adapts better to that, like, okay, yeah. So all you
Playing a
have to do
monsoon.
all you have to do to be a good football team is hope that it rains so Ryan Williams can slip all over the place and not torch you for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Get out of here, man. Like taking the best athletes and saying, all right, guys, today we're playing on marbles is not a good measure of who's good at football. It's just like, okay, all right, we spin the wheel of like what idiotic thing is going to happen in this game. So yeah, look, Michigan got it done, and Michigan's probably built more for that anyway because they're built to play like slow, slogging, messy, ugly football like they did against Ohio State when Ohio State also lost to them. But Ohio State did it at home. So I guess Alabama and Ohio State are about equal. Then is that what we're saying?
Yep. I think
I'm still
so.
gonna
That's
get
how it
I'm gonna get my
works.
shots off all day. If we're gonna talk trash about that. Um, but yeah, so it is what it is. The SEC bowl record is what 8-6 now. The Big Ten is 9-5. But that doesn't mean anything because they're the third and fourth best conferences in the bowl season because the American Conference and the MAC are the top two conferences because they're like 6-2 and 5-2 or something like that. Don't look at who they played. We're not going to pay attention to that. We're just looking at bowl record
Yep.
because that's how the Capital One Bowl Mania Cup is determined. Yeah, the SEC had its. I mean, still, as this is how bad it is. It's been an awful bowl season for the SEC, and the SEC is 8-6 in the bowls and playoffs
But
combined.
it's looked ugly with the teams that we have, that we thought were going to be good in the bowl season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I South Carolina, I just want, can we get Brett Bielema and Shane Beamer in a boxing ring and just let them
Yeah, I
figure
want
it
them.
out?
I want them like lubed up with baby oil in a baby pool, and I want them to just go at it in like sumo outfits. Because then like in a sumo environment, Bielema has his being gigantic and fat advantage,
Yep.
but then he's smaller and more slippery. That's where the baby oil comes in, and then you just see let him fight it out and see what happens, see who wins. No, it was just that was crazy. So apparently what Bielema was doing
He
apparently like
came across the field.
somebody had done this, and that was like the universal okay, hold up because this guy's not returning it. So let's not don't nobody hit anybody. So like whenever you kick off, supposedly like when you're going down on coverage, if you see the guy fair catch the ball or you see the ball go out of bounds or something like that, you put your arms out,
Hmm.
and that's like some universal thing where like then the guys who the ball's behind them and they can't see,
Yeah.
they know not to engage so that nobody gets hurt. So apparently they did that, and then they did it, but like the guy was actually returning it or
Mm.
something, and so they went and blew him up or
I
something.
thought it
And so
was like a
Bielema
weird
was like,
substitution thing they got pissed off
well, no,
about. I
so
couldn't
yeah,
tell.
so Bielema was pissed. Apparently, Bielema was pissed off about that because apparently Beamer they had broken this unspoken rule about like the kick or punt return safety thing or whatever. Okay,
Hmm.
so they did that, and then when they did that, the substitution stuff was going on too, and so when the guy pretended to be hurt, Bielema came across, and when Beamer was like pissed off at him or whatever, he just did this to like basically say like, yeah, this is supposed to mean something, and you disregarded it, so like it's on now,
Right.
bitches, kind of thing.
Yeah, dude. Beamer was hot. Like, dude, I
Yeah.
thought they were actually going to square up with like the two coaches were going to get after it. Like the players were going to have to pull the coaches off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Bielema was a
Mm-hmm.
big ass over there. Jesus Christ. I mean, I thought that South Carolina was going to whoop Illinois. So shout out to Illinois, I guess, for
Yeah.
proving me wrong. But I mean, and it's been a weird bowl season to say the least. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
some fun
Mm-hmm.
games here and there, but at the end of the day, you're right. It's exhibition games. It's honestly, it kind of serves now as a preview of the players you might have next year that
Yep.
are sticking around. You
Yep.
have that kind of going on. But now we regardless, Chad, we are down to 4, and I cannot wait for these games. I know
Yep.
I wish we were playing. End of the day, listen, I just want Texas to lose. I'll be honest with you. I don't care what else happens. And then, obviously, I would be happier if Penn State won, but not don't really care. But I just want good football at this point.
Yep.
How do you feel?
And it is. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you on that. I feel the same way. Um, I just want to. I don't know. I'm curious as to what you think. If you had to get pinned down, who you think is going to win these games? We'll start with the one that's hits a little closer to home for you on two fronts.
Yep.
Notre Dame, Penn State. You live out there, and then also you've got a Notre Dame fan friend group that just wants to like nonstop talk trash to you,
Ruin my
especially
day on a
now.
daily basis.
Yeah. So who you got in this one? I'm finding it hard to pick against Notre Dame at this point, but like
Me too.
uh,
However,
I
I
don't know.
think that Abdul Carter is going to wreak havoc.
Yeah.
I think that Penn
Is he
State
going to
has
be
the run
healthy?
game.
Is he going to be okay? Like, is it
I
because
don't know.
he was sitting a lot against Boise State?
Yeah,
So
I don't know. That's a
um,
good point. Who I know who will be healthy is Tyler Warren, Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton. I think they can
yeah.
get busy. Regardless, I've taken the under. It's like 43 points. Slam the under in this game. I think it's gonna be
Mhm.
low scoring. Hard nosed
I
Midwest
can see that.
football. We're gonna have a punts on punts and field goals, and it's gonna be ugly down there in beautiful Miami, Florida, on a Thursday night, no less.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't see. I have so you understand. Like Notre Dame is also as widespread in Pennsylvania as Penn State, if not even. So it's just like households are going to
Hmm.
war right now. Chad, I don't know what to tell you. It's like
Hmm.
it's pandemonium up here. But if I had to, yeah, you're right. I don't, it's hard to not pick against Notre Dame. I don't even know
You
who's the.
mean
I
hard to?
would
It's hard to pick
hard
against them, or hard
no
not to?
hard to not pick like to I don't know. I think they could actually do this and like beat Penn State. It's
Yeah,
I want to see what the spread is. That might give me a feeling.
it's 1.5 again.
Who's the
Notre
favorite?
Dame's favored. Yeah, and then
Oh, give
Ohio
me.
State's favored. Ohio State's favored by like a touchdown against Texas, six
Well,
and a
give
half or
me.
5.5, something like that.
I'm worried that Notre Dame's going to do the exact same thing to Penn State they did to us. I don't think Alec can handle that pressure. I'm worried.
Hmm.
But they
Hmm.
have Warren, who's a sure hand. Like I'll give that kid a lot of credit too. Like I know that
Yeah,
like he's got a lot
yeah.
of hype, but I think he's
They
worth
have
the hype that he's getting.
sure-handed receivers. They seem to be better. Like all the things that you guys struggled with, catching
Yep.
the ball,
Tackling.
having like a legit go-to
Hmm.
receiver. Okay,
Yep.
when you need 3rd and 6 and you got to pick it up, a dude who you can just be like, I'm just going to him anyway, and I'm gonna
Yep.
trust that he's gonna be able to big boy who's guarding him. Um, the running game, I think their running game is stronger. They got the two-headed monster with Allen and Singleton is really good, and they tackle better. Like they just seem more like gap sound, and they actually wrap up and finish the tackles. So I think it's going to come down to, you know, is Riley Leonard going to do enough with his arm? Because I think they should be able to play gap sound enough and play good enough, and tackle well enough to keep Notre Dame and um, Love and Leonard and those guys from running all over him. I don't know what's
Yeah. I like give me Penn State, and that's not like it's the home. It's I know it's the Homer pick, but I think what you just said is true. They are more. So it sounds terrible to say compared to us, but I think they're more up to the challenge right now, given where they
Mhm.
are versus where we were.
Yep.
Like
No, that's a
ours
good way of
playing
putting it.
better football. Ours playing better football. Penn State has a defense that you cannot run as a quarterback. We saw that against SMU. Even Max Madsen couldn't really go too many places against them when he
Mhm.
tried to step out of the pocket. Um, I think that Warren is hard to guard. I don't think he's shown time and time again that not really even Oregon's defense had a tough time against him.
Mhm.
I think, I mean, you know, I think this game will be what they call it a battle of attrition, where it's like who's going to budge first.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be in the trenches. That's what's going to make. That's where whoever wins the game is going to make their money in the trenches. But the way these teams are built, it's going to be knock down, drag out, hard nose, run the ball type of football, and it's going to be as Midwest as and Northeast as it can possibly get. But I
Yeah.
like Penn State in a very close margin here.
So does Boise State count as a top 10 team? Because if they do, then James Franklin has that monkey off his back. Um,
No, because they were
they were
what were they?
ninth. They were
No,
ninth. They were ninth, and they were
ninth.
eighth in the AP.
Oh, well then
But they got
maybe.
the third seed. So yeah, so
Mm,
maybe the big game monkey is off his back. Although I still think, if we're being realistic, like the most unproven of the teams is the teams that they have beaten so far. They beat
yeah,
SMU and Boise State. So like they've had the on paper anyway. what everybody would consider probably the easiest path of anyone to get here.
Yeah.
And
They took
so
care of
we'll
business, though. It's a,
so we'll see. They did take care of business. They did take care of business. That's for sure. And in both cases, they got out to big leads early.
hmm
So if they can do the opposite of what Georgia was doing against Notre Dame, which is jump out to an early lead, and then you can withstand maybe a mistake here or there, like they've done against both SMU and because you
hmm
remember Penn State had an ugly start to that game, and it was a couple of pick sixes, and they got up on SMU.
And that was it. Yep.
And then that was that. Yeah. So, but moving along as we get close to wrapping up here, Ohio State, Texas. This is the one. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think both of these games are like pretty epic matchups.
Right.
But I think this is the one that everybody's looking at. Like, damn, this could be the national championship before the national championship.
Yep.
Because I think both of these teams are like, if they were split up and they were playing those other two matchups, they would be the favorites to win and meet in the national
hmm
championship.
For sure.
But what do you think? I said everything I said earlier about Ohio State being the hunted and Texas being the hunter, and how it's hard to manufacture that, and Ohio State's going to have a hard time really convincing themselves that they are the ones with a chip on their shoulder. Um, Texas, not
Yeah.
so much. So what do you think about this?
I mean, it's down the Cotton Bowl, so that's in Texas. So that's
In
that's one
Dallas,
thing
yeah,
that's in Dallas. So you know that there's going to be a lot of burnt orange out there
yeah,
for sure. So I think that that's what Ohio State would have to lean on the most. Is like we're going into their territory essentially. Like it's a pseudo home game, just like when we
yeah,
play Atlanta in
uh-huh,
Mercedes Benz. It's a similar thing. It's like they don't got to go far to play. We got to go down south. We're going down where it's
right,
warm. We're going down into Texas country, to the state of Texas, more no less. To play
hmm,
them. Um, I've said it since the start of since they played Tennessee. If Ohio State can play like that, nobody beats them. I don't care who they are.
mm,
That's just like the matter of fact. Like, and
yeah,
considering that our offense and defense could take care of Texas, and you saw what happened to us.
right,
I mean, that's not. I'm not trying to be the defeatist and shit on my own team, but like all
mm,
things being equal, I think Ohio State will beat Texas in this game. I don't know by how much, but I think even if it's close and it comes down to it, Ohio State has that offensive firepower to shut the door on Texas when it comes down to it.
yeah.
I like
I
Ohio State.
mean, yeah, you could be right. I mean, the one thing is Texas has the number one pass defense in the country, um,
It's going to be Well, you got
and they've
yeah
got a really good run defense too. And you can't say that they've had like nobody that they've done that against.
for sure.
Although it hasn't been the toughest schedule in the world, but they did it. Uh, Texas A&M, and I mean, granted, that you can sprinkle some Mississippi State and some other stuff, but they did do it against Oklahoma. So they've had some. Georgia is probably the biggest match that they've had when it comes to the passing game, and you saw even with Georgia doing what they did in Austin, Carson Beck threw what, like, three picks in
hmm
that game.
Yep.
So it's a really good matchup, I think, having that secondary and that pass rush against Will Howard and those receivers and that offensive line. So yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna really.
It's about as great
This
of a game
this
as
is
you
what's
could
so
ask
great about
for.
this, though. We actually get to see it. Remember when people used to
Yep.
tell us that we didn't need to have a playoff because arguing about who belonged and who should have actually won it, when we don't think the team that won it should have won it, and like that's what's great. People get to talk about this. Like, bullshit. Like, that's just, we're still talking about it, but now we get to talk about it as a preview, and then they actually
Yes.
play instead of just arguing about like who's better, MJ or LeBron. Like, no, let's just have them both play against each other in their prime. Can we make that happen? Can somebody clone them and make it to where we can actually see how five MJs go up against five LeBrons? Um, because that's anyway. When you get a chance to actually play the games on the field and see, like, all the talk doesn't matter,
Yep.
because all the talk said, even in the first half, Arizona State doesn't have a shot against Texas. See, this is why they shouldn't have been in there. Oh, okay. And then they almost won the game. and they should have
Yep.
won the game in overtime. So,
This
like,
is
this is why we play the games.
just like when it has the same matchup, like look of it, like an NCAA 14 game. Like that's the only time you'll be able to see that kind of matchup. Like
Yeah,
when we played Ohio State in the semifinal, it's like the same thing. Where it's like those teams just look so good on
yeah,
opposite sides of each other, like burnt orange and scarlet and gray. Like those two, you're talking about the blue bloods of college
yeah,
football, and you could say the whole thing for all four teams.
yeah.
Realistically, you talk about like heritage in the sport.
Hmm.
It's these four teams that are left, no doubt
Look,
about it. I think it's gonna be great football.
I used to always get so mad because of the way that the bowl tie-ins worked for the
Mm-hmm.
SEC that like LSU would always be playing. We'd always play somebody like um, I don't know, Iowa, excuse me, Iowa or Clemson and I'm talking about like this is like old days Clemson, Taj Boyd era and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So you're playing these games against teams, and it's like this. You play all your SEC schedule, and then you play like a handful of teams every now and then out of your conference, and then you have um, your bowl game, and your bowl game. It was
Mm-hmm.
always like the same handful of teams that we'd get.
Yep.
Maybe we'd get Miami, but it was not when Miami was good. It was when Miami was down. We'd get Nebraska here and there, but like it's like, man, I want to play Michigan in a bowl
We
game.
we played
I want,
Nebraska 2 years in a row in the
yeah,
same
like
bowl game.
I want to play one of the, you know what I mean? I want to get a chance to play somebody we've never played before.
Yeah, bro. I swear to
I would
God,
dream of that stuff.
We kept playing Michigan State, Nebraska on rotation for like 4
Yeah,
years. I swear
us
to
too.
God, like
Yeah, we played Michigan State, we played Penn State, we played Notre Dame. I think we played Notre Dame like 4 times
yeah,
in
we
bowl
played
games.
Nebraska in back-to-back bowl seasons in back-to-back years. In this
Hmm.
Capital One Bowl twice. My parents went both times. Like we play
Yeah,
like but to have games like this and it being for the chance of playing the national
yeah.
championship, unbelievable. I think it's going to
Notre
be
Dame,
close. I
Penn
don't
State,
think
Ohio
Ohio
State,
State covers.
Texas.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
and then
but
and then you had
I'm not
Oregon, Ohio State last week. Like that's insane.
in a real
And
Rose
Georgia,
Bowl
Notre
too.
Dame. Yeah,
Yep, in
exactly.
a rematch of a national championship Sugar Bowl. Like it doesn't get better
Mhm.
than what we've got going on right now, ladies and
No,
gentlemen.
no. And
And
and I and I stand by what I said 3 weeks ago or whenever it was when we did that episode where we first talked about the first round of the playoffs. I was like, it's only going to get better from here. And I think it only gets better if they add another four teams.
yep,
I'm starting. There was a time where I thought a 24 team playoff made more sense because then you start with the 16 teams. There's 8 buys, but
hmm
after we saw what we saw with all of the bye teams losing, all of the conference champions losing, now it's like, okay, let's just rank this stuff from 1 through 16, put 16 teams in, and the top 8 seeds all get home games. Maybe you do like the top 6 seeds get home games, and then 7 and 8 don't get home games. They get to play in neutral site bowl games. And then maybe the next round you make it to where the top 4 seeds still get home games if they've survived. Do something like that where you give an advantage to being one of those top 4 teams. But then it's just like then you're just talking about advantage. It becomes more like what the NCAA tournament is. So you can say
hmm
what you want to say about the tournament, but nobody ever says, "Oh, well, such and such a team uh, got in there when they shouldn't have gotten in there, and they would have uh, the team that got bounced out would have won the whole thing or could have won the whole thing." Like, no, bro, I'm sorry. Like, 17 and 13 Syracuse, you would not have won the whole thing. And even if you would have, like, don't lose 13 games. I don't know what to tell you. But when we're sitting here, we're like, well, don't lose 3 games. Like, okay, well, that's easy for you to say, Indiana, when you only played Ohio State. Like, why don't you go try to play the schedule that Georgia played? Texas twice, Ole Miss on the road, Alabama on the road. One of those Texas matchups being on the road. Go try to play the schedule LSU played. South Carolina on the road, Alabama, Ole Miss, and who was the other one? Oh, and we had USC to start the season.
And UCLA.
And UCLA, well, UCLA was not that good, but I'm just saying, like but yes, we scheduled an out of conference schedule that
Yep.
on paper was supposed to. We at least challenged ourselves.
Attempted to,
Yeah, we
right?
attempted to
Like,
challenge
yeah.
ourselves. Okay, and then we had Oklahoma, Florida, Vanderbilt, like even like the teams that were like 500 but beat other good teams. They didn't beat us. Well, Florida did, but anyway. So like yeah, it's easy to say don't lose 3 games, don't lose 2 games when you only play one that you can lose. But like when you play 6 games that you can lose that are like legit toss up, 50-50. Oh, A&M was the other one we played on the road in College Station. Yeah, okay. Indiana, play A&M on the road, Alabama at home, and Florida on the road, and also what should we
South
call it?
Carolina.
South Carolina on the road, and then Ole Miss at home, and then come back to me. Let's see if you go 11-1 against that. Indiana
Right.
probably goes 8-4, just like Texas
Mm-hmm.
A&M, just like
No,
us.
I was gonna say it. I was gonna say it.
Seriously, I think Indiana LSU is about comparable.
Yeah.
Now that we've seen what we've seen from what those two teams were able to accomplish, yeah, I think LSU could have got their ass kicked in the first round by Notre Dame too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's not that hard to do that.
It's all gonna be on the field. That's what
It's,
matters the
it's gonna be
most. And
on the field.
I can't wait, man.
So I can't wait
I
either.
can't wait.
It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be a
I
lot of
wish we were
fun.
talking about my game. Wish we were talking about
No
Georgia.
kidding. But hey, look.
Georgia Penn
So
State would have ruined a lot of relationships I have with my friends. So
yes,
maybe it's better.
right. So so we've got a lot of stuff to still talk about with football as we've got this weekend's games coming up, and then we've got the national championship in a couple of weeks. But we also are transitioning into we're going to start talking about basketball, and as we saw this past weekend, SEC play started. Both of our teams lost. Georgia just kind
Sure
of
did.
felt Georgia fell apart. They were rebounding really well, cleaning the
We
glass
looked
on the
good. We
offensive
had a
side
lead.
and getting chances, getting second chances, but couldn't make enough shots, couldn't get enough offensive rebounds to finish it out on the road at Ole Miss. LSU, on the other hand, lost a tough one to Vanderbilt at home. And the way that the SEC is this year, it's such a tough conference. 500 record probably easily gets you into the NCAA tournament, but
Mm-hmm.
you've got to win your home games. And LSU lost
Right.
what was basically a coin flip at home. And if you got a coin flip at home, you got to win it. Otherwise, you're probably going to be on the outside looking in, unless you can go pull off some upsets, be a good underdog
Dogs
on the
are
road.
barking.
All right, so the dogs are telling us that we need to get out of here. We appreciate everybody coming through. Don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe, and leave your comments. We love the comments, even the negative ones. And I don't know, everybody, go hug somebody you love because you never know how long you're going to have that opportunity. And we appreciate everybody coming through. We are the South End Zone. I am Chad. He is Tyler. We appreciate y'all coming through. Peace, y'all.